All right, so we are here towards the end of the day. Of course, in the grander scheme of information warfare and the gamified metaverse, our social relations are also being enclosed and integrated into the cap system of global capital. And in this larger conversation around the metaverse and information warfare and navigating what's coming, beyond the video gamification element, there's also the media element. And as Michael Crow in Arizona State University says, in their Center for the Future of War, the future is weaponized narrative. And I think we all know that we've been navigating that in very intense ways over the past 18 months. And oftentimes our identity becomes wrapped up in the media that we consume. And increasingly, the media that we're consuming online is integrated into sort of vertical chains of capital that seek to divide and isolate us from one another and channel us into certain stories. And so a lot of people have asked me, clearly I'm here and I'm here to tell a story. I'm not here to tell you that you should necessarily follow my story, but I'm offering one model of how I see the world in all of the upheaval and standing for natural life and against AI and this militarized metaverse. That's sort of the story I'm saying, and that if we could all awaken to that as what is actually happening, that we could see the threat and then from a principled place, a moral place, try to begin to rectify it and heal the past harms. And that's sort of the narrative that I'm in. And over the course of the last 18 months, I started out in education and working around issues of poverty management, and then it grew, and the attention on my work has grown. I'm clearly not sort of any kind of big fish at this point. I'm still a very tiny fish in this, but I know that people appreciate what I offer, those of who do and those who don't. But I'm not doing this for money, and I'm very fortunate in that my economic well-being at the present time isn't integrated into how many of you choose to step into the story that I'm offering. I'm simply offering it more for me as a journey. It feels like for me a journey of trying to find the truth of what is happening, try to look at the past history and blend them together and offer them up to people and give people tools of looking at the world that might help them make sense of what's happening. But I'm not really doing it for financial gain. Not that I'm against people who are, but we do have to recognize that the stories being offered when financial gain is involved, the AI systems, the data analytics systems, all of these systems are meant to keep our attention in this weaponized narrative moment and to keep us focused and to keep us in feedback loops that are keep our eyes on devices and screens and not actually out in the real world. And that those content creators, those influencers who are very effective at that, at keeping the attention focused in a narrow story, are the ones that are financially rewarded. So, that has been the space of influencers in a lot of online platforms, many of which were not monetized in a variety of ways. And as the pandemic wore on and the control over the narratives by those at the top began to be more and more repressive, many people were removed from those platforms or chose to leave those platforms, and then were looking for more secure places to tell the stories that they wanted to tell and to earn their livings. In that mix. And so one of the places that was well positioned to catch a lot of people who were transitioning off of those platforms and to bring in new creators is Rokfin. And Rokfin sort of bills itself as sort of one of these largest subscription-based blockchain models for content creation. And it's based here in Austin, and it's a relatively new company, just a couple years old. And so that's where we're here right now, and it's in a co-working space. So you'll remember yesterday we were at the WeWork co-working space on Congress Street or Congress Avenue in downtown Austin, and that's where Social Finance and the General Assembly were there, and many other organizations use that as their address. And this is a much smaller entity, and it's outside of a downtown setting. It's off one of these many highways in Austin, but it's sort of like you can see behind me, the future of work is in these sort of gussied up freight containers that are sort of set up as mod pods, I guess, to do your work in, and it seems like a very small scale, especially when we compare it to like the Samsung Samsung office complex, this behemoth entity that we were just visiting before. So, you know, I'm here to talk just a little bit about the attention economy, which is coming online, and the idea of data analytics tied to blockchain, because what is really most valuable about metadata that accrues in an interoperable format, which is what blockchain offers, is the use of that potentially for machine learning and pattern recognition. And then even within Rokfin, there's quite a bit of data that they're gathering on those people who are subscribing so that they can build their business model, because they're in the business of eyeballs on screens and growing their base and growing their stable of content creators. And so they want to know who's subscribing, how do they interact with the content, what are those patterns, and how do we offer them more of what they want, which again keeps them online more and more and more. So I'm just going to take a minute and sort of touch base on a press release by a company called Segment. Segment is a data warehousing system that was hired by Rokfin to sort of help streamline their querying, in which they could do analytics on their customer base to help grow their business and feed that back to the content creators. But again, you can understand within the system, just like any media, it's not really different from existing media, but you advance what sells, you advance what gets people's attention and keeps people's attention. And sometimes the stories that are most important are the stories that people don't need to realize yet that they're the ones that need to be paid attention to. And so we get in these feedback loops of we're giving people what they think they want, when really there are important narratives that need to be shared that maybe aren't popular. They're not the popular narratives. They're not something that's going to keep people's attention for a long time, at least initially. And yet, from the point of view of real investigative journalism, those are the things that most need to be said. And the business model, even on blockchain, even if it's secured and private, or gets around the issues of being pulled down, it doesn't really remedy the fact that at the end of the day it is a capitalist construct, and a lot of people consuming media are doing it in a way that is somewhat of a distraction as opposed to a mobilization, which is hard because we're all stuck and trying to navigate and find new social systems in person, which is very difficult. So I'm reading from, essentially it's a press release by Segment that's sort of touting the services they offer to Rokfin to help them manage their data better. And this is both the data of how their subscribers interact with the content. So this is just a quote from their release. Rokfin is hyper-focused on making their content creators successful by giving them the tools they need to drive more subscribers and improve user engagement. So again, that's the growth model. You get more people and then you hold their attention longer and you retain them. In order to do this, they need easy access to all of their end users' behavioral and contextual data, including data from Chargify, Snowflake, Amazon S3, Atatas, Pingdom, front-end segment events, and more to power advanced customer analytics. Okay, so by all of us participating in these digital spaces, we're all feeding into the greater data analytics system. So Rokfin's existing data warehouse solution was limiting their ability to innovate and scale, and they needed tools that connect with their warehouse, and their warehouse didn't allow them to marry the behavioral and contextual data to derive advanced customer analytics and power next-level customer dashboards. They needed a flexible, easily accessible, and central repository for all customer data across the business to live. So they decided to rethink their architecture. Segment made it easy to empower both their content creators and internal business teams with new insights across the holistic customer journey. Rokfin was able to up-level their customer dashboards by marrying the raw behavioral data with payment and subscription data. Internally, the Rokfin's data teams were able to build better product level and business dashboards, and externally they launched powerful customer dashboards to give content creators insights to help them optimize their own processes and acquire more subscribers. And so I think you get the sense. This is a quote from Casey Kent at Rokfin. These dashboards marry Segment's behavioral data with clickstream data, payment data, subscription data, and show users which clicks led to subscriptions, which is how creators get rewarded. Okay. And so really, like, we're talking about life on these blockchain ledgers, life on leaderboards, and all of this is made possible, largely, it's going to be made possible by the blockchain technologies. Now, I want to take just a moment to touch on Rokfin's, they have a patent, so the co-founders are Scott Augustine and Martin Floriani, and they founded the company about 2018 here in Austin, and they patented in August 2020, I think this came out, what was called a mint and burn blockchain-based feedback communication protocol. And so that was their patent, was around blockchain-based feedback communication. The firm Pillsbury Winthrop Shaw Pittman helped them with their patent process. And this particular law firm has a focus in media, energy, finance, and real estate. And they have, they're a premium corporate member of the Council on Foreign Relations, and they're pretty connected. I mean, their lobbying clients include Eli Lilly, Northrop Grumman, Abbott Laboratories, Boeing, General Motors. I mean, this is a pretty high-power law firm helping on this blockchain patent. And so, as we move towards the attention economy, there's something, and this is unrelated to Rokfin entirely, but the idea of blockchain media and blockchain attention and advertising is that there's like these new browsers like Brave, which is a blockchain browser where you can opt in to get attention, basic attention tokens, and you'll get tokens for using the browser and engaging with it, and then those tokens can be redeemed. And so I think this idea of tokenization of one's attention is really important to consider how this is going to go moving forward, because if we move into a universal basic income world where people's actual liquid cash assets are greatly diminished or constrained, when you're engaging with digital media content, it's very likely that either your subscription services, or if it's a non-subscription, not like Rokfin, some other online platform, your digital tips, they're encouraging digital tipping of content creators. Those will be through tokens that may very well be tied to one's behaviors. They may not actually, they may be tokens that are not related to real money, but actually on, you earn points that can be then transferred into tokens that can be used to reward content providers, and then that becomes their income stream, right? As this alternative script-based payment system. And this is something, again, it's completely different type of media consumption, but there are whole other segments of the attention economy that don't have to do with sort of deep investigative journalism. On the other hand, this could be, there are whole segments on camming, right? And that's another kind of media focus where people are tipping out individuals for other types of online experiences. And when you understand that what they're after is actually capturing your behavioral data and how you're interacting with content, whether that be a very compelling investigative piece or a titillating, exposure, that behavioral data is going into the system. And if we understand that the goal of AI is this, that we are all the teachers to the singularity of what it is to be human, whether that's like maybe geeking out on like a policy issue or something that's a much more, physical related experience, that's all going into the system. And then we just have to think about that. We have to think about what these tokens are and what it means to consume media in a way that they can then track our consumption of it, track our metadata, and use it to profile us, both to grow businesses from the capitalist framework, but also to shape the narrative, and then who's shaping what the narrative is, right? Because in Rokfin, what they're saying is, we want to tell content creators how to grow their base, which means they need to give the customers what they want. Maybe not what they need, but what they want. And so then the scope of coverage necessarily, if it's being driven by tokenized profit, becomes really narrow and really pedestrian. And the reward systems aren't there to be the unpopular person. The reward systems simply aren't there. And so again, I wanted to use this opportunity to come out to Rokfin to talk about attention economies on blockchain, to talk about the fact that even companies that are being framed as sort of like in the alt media space are collecting really robust data analytics on their customer base and then feeding that back to their content creators and then essentially controlling their content creators through those data analytics, and then to have bigger conversations about what that means in this moment of information warfare and weaponized narrative.
So I think I'm thinking like devil's advocate. They would say, well, they're not controlling me as a how would you respond to that? If a content creator says, well, they're not telling me what to do or not do. They say this about the media too, by the way, the mainstream media. They don't tell me what to do and what not to do.
Well, they're rewarded by the retention and building of the subscriber base. I mean, that's on the website. I mean, that their content creators are, now the question is at some point, would they cut off people who were not meeting certain goals? And that is the leaderboard culture, right? It's survival of the fittest. And so the influencers that are getting, millions of hits will be the ones that are lifted up, and those ones that are the less popular, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the less popular content creators are the ones that are doing less important work. And so the question then is, across all of these institutions, is there at some point at which, if this is your business model, they say that you're no longer a good match for organization and let go, and you're no longer in the stable of content creators for that particular thing. I mean, it is a business, and so it is the choice of the people running the business who they affiliate with. So, and then again, it is everyone's choice. It is everyone's choice what media they engage with. It is everyone's choice where they put their money, who they affiliate with as a content creator. Everybody has choices, but increasingly the choices are all digital, and all of those choices come with metadata attached.